Coming up next on the voice of Alabama politics, Hubbard's desperate for money. Also, the V-Team looks at Hubbard's spokesprincess. And Mike Hubbard says he's a Bob Riley disciple.
All pay heed. The Lord Jehovah has given unto you these 10 commandments for all to obey.
Bob a prophet? Nah, for profit. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V.
The voice of Alabama politics. With your host, Bill Brett. Now, the #1 political show in Alabama, The V.
Welcome to the voice of Alabama politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome all.
Hi, how are y'all doing today?
Well, we are here at the Lee County Justice Center, where Mike Hubbard is on trial for 23 felony counts of public corruption. This last week was a roller coaster. It started with a explosive testimony. Day 2 was explosive testimony, and the last day was just about as bizarre as anything you would see in Monty Python, Jack. I mean, it was pretty really crazy. I want to start back. You know, all the press was over here on Monday. All the rumors about what's Bentley going to say, what's Bentley going to say, what's Bentley going to say. Susan, what did Bentley have to say?
Jobs.
He
said just, actually, what Bentley didn't have very much to say. We knew he was going to be right, a confirmation witness, sorry. But what he basically said is, yes, the Speaker of the House did bring people, did come before me. I thought he was acting as the Speaker of the House. I did not know that he had clients. But, he kept trying to say that he was bringing jobs. But I think maybe the jury really got the point that he was acting as the Speaker.
But Bill Baxley came back and said, well, it wouldn't have mattered if the Speaker was there or not as the Speaker.
Right. Well, I mean, it does matter because you're getting paid. Because are you acting as a lobbyist or are you acting as the Speaker? I mean, the governor needs to know that if he's making official decisions.
Well, the governor, Jack, he just wimped out. He did what Bentley always does. He wimped.
No, not this governor.
I can say with a certainty that I went to visit him in March of 2015 with Barron and told him that we had heard a rumor that he had a girlfriend. And we had this hour-and-a-half meeting on a Friday afternoon, and we talked. He seemed to be more interested in who's getting this out there, where did it come from. He never said, he didn't lie to me because he never said I did or didn't have an affair. But at the end of the meeting, I said, off the record, and now that he's testified, feel free to say this. I said, in your heart of hearts, you're going to have to go testify. Do you think Mike Hubbard is guilty of what they're going to bring you over there to talk about? And he said, yes. But his memory has lapsed.
Yeah, it has.
In a year's time.
Conveniently lapsed.
We've had a few witnesses have that problem.
Yeah, they've all been favorable to the defense, Mike Hubbard. Dak Swadek.
Not favorable.
A guy that has made millions because he was associated with Mike Hubbard. He's one of his most faithful lieutenants. He's been with him from the beginning of his political career. He just told it like it was, and it was very damning, wasn't it?
It was very damning. The APCI incident, he knew that was so damning that the minute that it happened, they dispatched Tim Howe to go find Farrell Patrick in the State House that night and fire him on the spot so they could try to start dispersing all of this.
And what happened was he discovered that American Pharmacy Cooperative, Inc., was also, which was a client of theirs, was also a client of Hubbard's, and they panicked, didn't they, Beth, because they thought they'd done something illegal.
They did, and for a lot of these people, especially these younger guys, they've got families they're trying to take care of too. They can't afford to let this come back on them. And I know we've had some witnesses who have signed immunity agreements, some haven't. But if I were one of these guys and I'm a young husband with a family to take care of, I'd be singing like a canary just to make sure that...
Pardon the pun.
Yeah, well, a canary that didn't sing. But to make sure that I'm covered so that I can go home at night to my family.
One of the big things, Jack, was Dak stood up there and said that he and Billy Canary were at a meeting where Hubbard asked him to invest in Craftmaster printers to give him $150,000. He said before that meeting, some of Hubbard's staff had asked him, would he invest in the company? And he said,
No.
hell no.
Well, the interesting thing, too, is that Dak Swadek was really made by Bob Riley.
Yeah.
He brought him to Alabama. He was a very trusted advisor to both Bob Riley and Mike Hubbard. And it's funny how Dak Swadek, who did not write the ethics law, has a much better understanding of it than Mike Hubbard, who did write the ethics law. Dak Swadek did a brave thing, as did Josh Blades and John Ross and Tim Howe.
They did.
Because they're close. They're like family to Hubbard. And for them to come over here and take the bold move to say, yes, we told him not to, and he did it anyway.
Well, also the biggest thing with Dax, though, is when the speaker asked him for that investment, he said, no, I can't, because I think we'd be breaking the ethics law by doing that. You can't ask me for a thing of value. I can't give you a thing of value. He made that very clear to Speaker Hubbard at that time.
You know, and one of the things that juries do remember is what the attorneys promised them in the beginning. And Matt Hart promised that they would hear from a lobbyist who would say that Mike asked him for a thing of value, and that lobbyist said no, it would be illegal, and we heard from that lobbyist, and it was over $150,000, and he just said not going to do it. I mean, I thought it was very. I mean, Dax is Dax, but he told the truth, and he was a stand-up guy there.
And his memory was all there too, which is important because we've had a lot of memory issues so far in this.
There have been one guy that did not. We got about 2 minutes. One guy that didn't forget a thing was former ethics director Jim Sumner. I mean, he got out there and he and Hart laid out a hypothetical on every crime Hubbard's accused of, and he said they would be felony. Right?
He did, and they laid the law out very simply for the jury. What would cause a break in the ethics laws, what the ethics laws permitted, and all the hypotheticals, even down to comparing. If a Kirby salesman were to sell stuff within the state or without the state. And so one thing that Sumner said very, very important was that regardless if the contract was out of the state or not, if he was representing himself as the Speaker of the House, that was still illegal, even though it was outside the state.
Even if it was in France.
Exactly.
And he did that in France. He did that in several other places.
But Baxley tried to oppose him, right? Yeah. Sumner as an expert witness on the ethics law.
Yes, he did.
And he led the Ethics Commission for 20 years?
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, nobody, Jack, knows more about the ethics laws in Alabama than
than he does, than Jim does.
And I think it goes to show too that some of these laws that Mike Hubbard broke or allegedly broke are laws that were still in effect before 2010. These are not all new laws.
No, not all of them are new.
I mean, this thing with the ALGOP being you can't do what that's really basically money laundering is what he did.
That's ethics 101.
Yeah, I haven't been over here because I don't have an armored suit, but interesting thing to me was Mike has led everybody to believe that Jim Sumner gave the green light to him on all of these issues.
He did.
And Sumner got up there, and I haven't been here, and said au contraire.
Yeah,
he did.
Yeah, he only got out of 5, he only got 2 kind of. Well, no, he got 1 approved, and the other, but it wasn't a formal opinion, and the other one he didn't get approved. He just talked to him over the phone.
Right. And there were some of them he didn't know about as well.
That's right. He didn't know about
ABCI.
All right, we got to leave it right there. We're coming to you from Lee County. We'll be right back.
Walking through a party in the county jail. The prison band was there, they began to wail. The band was jumping and the joint began to swing. You should have heard the knocked out jailbird sing, let it rock. Everybody let it rock.
Well, Thomas, you've got pre-diabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have prediabetes. Big time.
Welcome back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. Beth, Will Brook took the stand this week, and he testified that he built the plan for Mike's Craftmaster printer to recover from its indebtedness. He also testified that he invested $100,000 in Mike's company, and he also testified that he got the upper echelon of the Business Council of Alabama together and said, we have to find Mike Hubbard work.
He did, and I think even just starting from the beginning on that, he wrote this business plan for Craftmasters. Okay, well, you would typically hire a consultant to do something like that. So if Will Brook is giving that product to Mike Hubbard for free, I would say that thing has value, right? And
well, it
he's
could
a
cost you
lobbyist or a
$20,000, $30,000, $100,000 for a turnaround plan.
Right, right, exactly. And Will Brook's the principal. So, if we just start breaking this down in little pieces, this gets really easy to start seeing how the law got broken.
Well, I mean, Jack, think about it. The reason he said he didn't want Mike to find a job with anybody else, he wanted to work for himself, is so he wouldn't be compromised. But if the BCA guy's getting the jobs, is he?
Well, as Marty Feldman said, too late. It's already, and this stuff about, that Will Brooks said about, this arrangement we're talking about. And then for the defense to be wanting to paint the picture that they were friends.
Yeah.
And that friends fall in a different category than a normal person who would loan you money. That's not true.
Jim Sumner made it very clear when he was on the stand this week that the friends exception is for people that have known each other basically all their lives, that like to go on vacation together. They go and eat at each other's houses. And in all of the testimony that we've heard about friends, there's only one or two that fall in that category.
I mean, think about this seriously. If this friends exception allowed someone who knew you as a politico to call you a friend and then give you any amount of money, I mean, everybody is bought off then.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody is safe.
That's
Everybody.
bribery 101.
It really is. And Will Brook is a smart man. One of the things we noticed that was really irritating is when Hubbard was begging Will Brook to get him a job, he kept talking about God's will and God will help him and God, because evidently Will's a religious man. I don't see any of that in the other emails.
There's not that in any of the other emails. You go look in the Minda Riley Campbell emails. You look at the Bob Riley emails. It's not there.
Yeah, I mean, he gets all godly when he's talking to somebody who might be.
The cardinal rule: know your audience.
Know your audience.
And,
he definitely knows that.
Well, and one thing I want to bring up here, and all these emails that we're talking about, speaking of knowing your audience, understand they came from Mike Hubbard at Auburn Network. But all of them at the bottom said Mike Hubbard, Speaker of the House of Representatives, and gave his district office, and his district phone number.
I think that brings up an interesting point. Bobby Abrams, a wealthy man from New York State who used to own a lot of manufacturing here in town, still owns a big company here in Auburn, Opelika. He said that, he wanted to help Mike out. He wanted Mike to help him out. Selling cups. He thought that'd be a good fit for Mike.
He makes cups for football games, right?
Yeah, he makes cups for the NFL, the NBA, or everybody like that. So he said, well, he said, Mike could maybe sell some cups for us with the NCAA. And then the president of the company got up there and said, what, Susan?
Well, she's the general manager of Capital Cups, actually.
She's president general manager.
Yeah, president general manager of Capital Cups. And she said that, well, in addition to Mike actually trying to go to the college system and get him in the college system, that he had offered up Publix as a contact, he'd offered up Chick-fil-A as a contact, he'd offered up Waffle House as a contact.
How many months was Mike paid before he ever met the president and CEO or president and
his
manager?
First check was October 1st of that year. He did not even meet with her until close to Thanksgiving the next month. So we were talking about almost 2 months.
So he got $20,000 for the first 2 months, and he hadn't met with anybody from the company.
And how many cups has he sold?
Well, that's let me get there. The interesting thing is they flashed up 20 checks that he had been paid in the amount of $10,000 each by Capital Cups for assisting this. And of all of those companies, including the deal with the college networks, no cups were sold. Now, there's value. I understand there's value in a contact, but you know, how many years has it been now?
You know, Jack, one of the things we've noticed about all these consulting contracts that Hubbard had, they all left him before he was indicted.
Yeah, I mean, the contracts.
The contract,
they ended just right before the indictments.
Right before the indictments. Do you think there's anything fishy about that?
They might have been hauled before the grand jury and offered up something that piqued somebody's interest.
Yeah. I mean, this guy was making about $40,000 a month. Capital Cup said he never really did any real work for him. But Beth, he did help Abrams finish out a patent that was worth a lot of money to him.
He did. My understanding is that he used his state staff to get that patent. And, you know, and that was the famous line now of when they asked Josh Blades, or when Josh Blades asked the speaker, why is this so important to you? Because he thought he was doing a favor for a constituent. And Josh Blades asked Mike Hubbard, why is this so important? And Mike Hubbard says, well, I've got 100,000 reasons why this is so important. And Matt Hart asked Josh Blades, do you take that to mean dollars? And he said, yeah, I did.
This was another sign of how Baxley uses confusion and trickery to get at the jury. At the end of cross-examining Abrams, he gets up there and he said, well, Miss Abrams, you said that it had been about 12, you know, it would have saved you $12 million if you'd gotten that patent on time. $12 million, that's a lot of money. And he said, so you would have had at least every week 100,000 reasons to get that patent through. Jack, it's just trying to confuse the jury and use something. It would be more than 100,000 a week if it's 12 million.
Abrams said it was tens of thousands of dollars a week.
Yeah.
And it went on for a long period of time. So it wasn't just 100,000 reasons.
100,000 reasons, Jack. You think Hubbard's getting paid 100,000?
Well, as Baxley would say, blah, blah, blah.
The blah defense.
Well, you got 200,000. We got about a minute here. I want to talk about Steve French. Former State Senator Steve French got up and basically half told the truth when Matt Hart was questioning him, and then when Baxley under cross, he crawdaddied back everything he said, Susan.
He did, and it was so bad that even before Hart turned him loose as a witness, Hart put up on, we had gone to lunch, well, no, it was right before.
We only got about a minute.
Anyway, he put the immunity agreement up on the screen and read it to him, and apparently he broke it not only for the lobbying problems that he had with that, but he had also broken the agreement with what he called the quid pro quo between French and Hubbard.
Yeah, there's a lot to that, but Steve French had an immunity agreement because he had been caught lobbying outside of, before the revolving door stopped, and that he had approached Hubbard. French had approached Hubbard to get him to do something for his boss, and after he said he would do it, Mike Hubbard asked him to get his boss to give him $150,000. We're gonna have to leave it right there. You're watching The V. We'll be right back.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. Tell me lies, tell me lies. Oh, no, no.
It's time to take a road trip.
In Alabama, the road and the restaurants are calling. We've elevated barbecue to an art form, a meat masterpiece. Fine dining your thing? National awards are putting us on the map.
Because everything's fresh and local.
And if you like your dinner with a view, well, you can't beat this. Alabama has a road trip with your name on it.
Which one you gonna take?
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Friday was the most bizarre day I have ever seen in court. Maybe one of the more bizarre days I've ever experienced. You had Billy Canary, who didn't, as you said, sing like a canary. I mean, he was crazy. You had Riley Campbell acting like she was the spokesmodel for the Riley Inc. Mafia. And then you had Bob Riley, who thought he laid back like he was Clint Eastwood or John Wayne and flipping the mic around. I mean, it was just bizarre, Jack.
Well, he hadn't been the same since that motorcycle wreck.
No, and he kept bringing that
He
up.
brought it up 3 or 4 times. You know, that motorcycle accident
really
I had.
wish.
I need to stretch out my knee.
I really wish when they had him under oath, they had asked him about this
I mean,
motorcycle accident. Like,
press-
let's talk a little more about this.
The press corps, who's been around since then, just laughed and laughed because nobody believes he really had a motorcycle accident. But Billy Canary, head of the Business Council of Alabama, one of the most powerful lobbying groups in the state, testified that he really helped Mike because he was his friend. He really didn't help him very much. And anything that everybody else remembered, he couldn't remember it all, Beth. I mean,
He couldn't. He had a lot of memory lapses. And there were even some times where there's an email up on the screen that says very specifically this one fact. And Matt Hart saying, you know, do you remember when Mike Hubbard said this to you, or if Mike Hubbard said this to you? No, I don't recall. And it's like, well, you see on this date at this time when you received an email?
yeah, and he was like, I'm not sure that's what that means.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, words are words. English is a language we all know. I mean, there was
Look,
so much
everybody-
semantics
listen,
argued.
You're not the executive director or president, whatever he is, of one of the most prestigious groups, like them or not, in Alabama, and in the Southeast probably. If you're in that position of power, you don't just lose it all of a sudden. I mean,
Jack, he lost it to the point that when Matt Hart asked him if it was one of the most influential associations in the state, he didn't have an answer.
No, he was silent. And when he
He
pressed,
said, "What do you mean? What do you mean by that?"
yeah, how would you define that basically? And Hart kept going after him, and finally he said, "Well, we're not like the AEA." And Hart's like, "You mean when they were in their heyday? They're not that now." Canary's memory was so faulty that he couldn't remember that he and his close friend, Dax Swadek, had gone to a meeting with Hubbard, driven all the way to Auburn, and at that meeting, Hubbard asked Dax to invest $150,000 in Craftmaster printer. He couldn't remember that they didn't even have that meeting, Susan.
You know, I'm sorry, but if I'm in a meeting and one person tells the other person, ask them for money, and the other person said, I really don't think that's a good idea because it's probably illegal, it's probably breaking the ethics laws, I think I could remember that.
these people were brought before Matt Hart probably 2 years ago.
Right.
And Matt thought enough of what they told him that he called them to be a witness for the prosecution.
Remember, it's
and now they're
not-
getting on the stand. You know, I don't know. I don't recall.
Well, the thing is, remember, it's not perjury if you don't remember.
Right, I know that,
if
and they know that.
If you say no,
I mean,
or if you say that didn't happen, you're lying. That's perjury. Of course, I
Right.
don't have a lot of faith in perjury.
Somebody
around
as
here,
sharp as Canary and Minda. I mean, like them or not,
Minda's
they're
an
sharp.
attorney. She knows.
Right. They're, you know,
Well,
they have a memory.
I mean, Canary should have no credibility in the business community or in the political community. He was an absolute coward, and he was an absolute shield for Mike, and he was so weak. I mean, he looked like a little, you know, that little character from Harry Potter that turned into that raggedy rat. That's what he looked like.
Well, and he squirmed in his chair the whole time while he hesitated while he answered.
Yeah, I know. Well, I want to get to the spokesprincess, who I've never seen anybody that was just so cutesy.
You mean Minda?
Riley, Campbell. I mean, Beth.
Bob Riley's her dad, right? That's her dad?
Yeah, he's her dad.
Yeah.
I mean, Susan, could you believe a grown woman acted like she did?
She acted like a giggly teenager.
Oh my God.
She tried to bat her eyes at the judge. She tried to bat her eyes at the jury. Tried to, just kind of giggle.
It was like a pageant
in between.
interview.
It was.
It really
like
was.
a beauty
Yeah, that
pageant
was it.
I mean, and it
interview.
had the whole fake smile working the whole time.
I mean, one of the journalists said to me, he said, "How do you do that all day with that smile? I mean, how does somebody do that?" I mean, Jack, you've known Minda, been around her at least. I mean,
well, I don't really know her well, but in fact, I thought she'd be late trying to find a place to park her broom. But the thing about her testimony and looking down at the jury and being patronizing to them, people pick up on that.
Yeah.
No other witness came in there with a contrived agenda and made a speech at the end. I know Mike Hubbard would never do that.
She got a point of personal privilege with the jury. I mean, and then tried to say things in her point of personal privilege that the prosecution had already objected to. You can't say that. You're not qualified to say that. Like, I would know that Mike Hubbard would never do anything illegal.
Well,
clearly he's on
what
trial.
happened was she kept expounding. Matt Hart would ask her a direct question, and she would turn it into something else, right?
She
Susan?
would, and when he would ask her a question, like for the Paris Air Show, for instance, did he represent himself as the speaker? Well, he is the speaker, and he was the speaker then. Just as though she was completely offended that he had, thrown dirt on Mike Hubbard.
It was really like royalty, wasn't it?
Right. Well, and the thing is, she has all these clients, and she can sit here and tell you about this boat they make down in Mobile and how this company had this many jobs 5 years ago and this many jobs today, but she can't tell you this person she referred to by their first name in an email, which person that would be.
Or a dinner party that she had
facilitated and planned,
and she just couldn't really remember why they had done that.
Yeah, she can't.
But she remembered when Bill Baxley crossed her on that. Did you notice?
I remember this. She talked down to that jury as if they were help.
She talked
she was a smart mouth to Matt Hart, too.
Yeah, she was.
When she stopped and said, well, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you're not asking the question right.
Yeah. We need to move on to Governor Riley. The one thing to take away.
Can I get my Riley stance before we talk about Riley?
He laid out like he was Clint Eastwood.
I don't have a mic.
But we got about 1 minute. The big takeaway I thought was that Riley didn't like being there, but that Mike had asked him 50 times, could he help him with a job or let him go to work for. I mean, Jack, he told Matt Hart he thought that was kind of a joke.
But yeah, Bob Riley said he thought that was kind of a joke. He knew better than that. Now, that's an out-and-out lie. I'm going to just say it out loud. Because Bob Riley was telling everybody else how desperate he was for money and a job, to the point Will Brook tells his board, we need to find Mike some employment. And so that is bull when Riley said, oh, well, that was just a joke between
Well, I think what the joke was actually on Mike at that point, because I think that Riley was just stringing him along and getting him to go ahead and be speaker and do all this stuff, and knowing he was getting desperate for money and not caring about the consequences.
Well, and he did a lot of things for Bob Riley's client, a lot of things for him, and it smacks of corruption.
But I'm sorry, don't forget, this man was making $65,000 a year speaker in a county where median is 45. He should have been fined.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. You've been watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.